Ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and my sisters, hear me today. Trust is a beautiful thing, oh, but let's be real. It's a whole lot easier when you understand. It's easy to trust a pilot when you see the plane is built strong. It's easy to trust a friend when their loyalty has been tested. But what happens when you can't see? What happens when you don't understand? See, trust is not just blind faith. No. God in his infinite wisdom will sometimes allow us to see, to understand, to get a revelation so that we can walk in boldness. Some of us are asking God for a breakthrough, but when he gives us the wisdom to move, we still hesitate. You say you trust God, but when he puts the blueprint in front of you, will you move? Trust is easy when clarity is present. That's the truth, isn't it? It's easy to trust when the path is laid out before you, when the details make sense, when every step has been calculated, checked, and confirmed. Trust becomes natural when you can see the full picture, when you understand how things are working together for your good. Nobody struggles to sit in a chair they can see is sturdy. Nobody hesitates to walk across a bridge that looks strong and well built. We don't wrestle with trusting when understanding is right in front of us. But let's talk about why that happens. Trust at its core is built on assurance. It is built on the knowledge that what you are relying on is reliable. If a person has proven themselves over time, you don't struggle to trust them. If a system has worked time and time again, you don't doubt it. If God has brought you through before, you don't have to question whether he will do it again. The problem is too often we act like trust is supposed to be blind. Yes, faith requires us to believe even when we don't see, but trust is strengthened when you do see, when you do understand, when you do know. And that's why trusting is easy when clarity is present. Think about a child learning to swim. If that child can see their parent in the water, arms outstretched, ready to catch them, trust is easy. They may hesitate for a moment, but as soon as they see that their parent is close, that they are strong, that they have caught them before, that child will jump. But take that same child and put them in a situation where the water is dark, where they can't see below, where they don't know what's waiting for them. Suddenly, trust is a challenge. Not because the parent isn't still there, not because they are any less capable, but because clarity has been removed. Understanding has been taken away. And when we don't understand, we hesitate. We do the same thing with God. When we can see his hand moving, when we can track the progress, when we can understand why things are happening the way they are, trust is natural. We don't fight against it. We don't second guess it. We walk boldly because we know. But the moment understanding is removed suddenly, trust becomes a struggle. We start asking questions, doubting, looking for another way. But let me tell you something. When God allows you to understand, when he gives you clarity, when he shows you the reason behind the process, that's not the time to hesitate. That's the time to trust him with everything in you. That's the time to move forward with confidence because he has already revealed what you need to know. Some of us are in a season where God has made things clear, but we're still dragging our feet. We asked for answers and he gave them. We prayed for wisdom and he poured it out. We wanted confirmation, and he sent it 3 times over. Yet we are still waiting, still questioning, still hesitating. Why? Because sometimes understanding brings responsibility. When you understand, you can't act like you don't know. When you see the truth, you can't pretend you don't see it. And so rather than stepping forward in trust, we linger in uncertainty. Not because God hasn't given us clarity, but because we are afraid of what clarity requires. But I came to tell you today, if God has made it clear, trust him. If he has given you understanding, don't delay. Walk in it, move in it, step into what he has shown you. Trust is easy when clarity is present. So stop acting like you're in the dark when God has already turned on the light. Stop hesitating when the path is clear. Stop asking for another sign when he has already spoken. If you understand, then trust. Because when you trust with understanding, you don't just survive, you step fully into the purpose he has prepared for you. Understanding breeds confidence. When you understand something, you don't have to guess, you don't have to hesitate, and you don't have to wonder if you're making the right choice. Understanding gives you a foundation to stand on, a reason to trust, a level of assurance that allows you to move forward boldly. When you truly understand something, confidence comes naturally. You don't have to force it, and you don't have to work for it. It just flows because knowledge brings. Think about when you are driving on a road you are familiar with. You know every turn, every stop sign, every speed bump. You don't have to slow down and second guess yourself at every intersection because you understand the route. You are confident in where you are going. But put that same driver on an unfamiliar road and suddenly confidence wavers. They drive slower. They keep checking for signs. They are hesitant. Not because they are incapable of driving, but because they lack understanding of the path ahead. That's how trust works. When you understand, you move forward with confidence. When you don't, you struggle to trust. Even when the road is completely safe. Many times we think trust is just about blind faith, but God never said we had to walk blindly all the time. He gives us wisdom, he gives us discernment, he gives us understanding, and he expects us to use it. When God reveals something to you, when he allows you to grasp the why behind the process, that understanding is meant to fuel your trust. It's meant to give you confidence in him. It's meant to eliminate the fear, the doubt, and the hesitation. Look at the people in the Bible who walked in great faith. Their trust was not without understanding. Abraham understood that God was a promise keeper. That's why he was willing to go to a land he had never seen. He didn't know every detail, but he understood enough about God to know that his word never fails. Joseph understood that his dreams were from God. Even when he was in prison, he held on to that understanding, and it gave him confidence to keep trusting. Esther understood that she was placed in the palace for a reason, and that understanding gave her the boldness to step before the king. Understanding breeds confidence. When you know that God has called you, you don't have to keep doubting yourself. When you understand that he is with you, you don't have to fear what's ahead. When you recognize that every delay, every detour, every closed door is part of his greater plan, you don't have to panic when things don't go your way. Understanding gives you the confidence to trust him. even when things aren't perfect. But here's the problem. Sometimes we have understanding, yet we still refuse to trust. We know what God has said, but we keep looking for more confirmation. We understand the assignment, but we keep asking for another sign. We know what we're supposed to do, but we let fear creep in and shake our confidence. Let me tell you something. Understanding should lead to trust, not hesitation. If you understand that God is in control, then act like it. If you understand that He has never failed you, then walk like it. If you understand that He has a plan, then trust it. The enemy wants to keep you in a place of doubt even when you already know the truth. He wants to make you second guess what God has shown you. He wants to shake your confidence and keep you from moving forward. But the devil is a liar. If you understand, then let that understanding fuel your confidence. Let it drive you to trust like never before. Let it push you into action instead of fear. When you understand, you don't have to be afraid. When you understand, you don't have to keep waiting for another confirmation. When you understand, you can move, you can build, you can step forward knowing that God has already worked it out. Understanding breeds confidence, so trust in what you know and walk boldly into what God has prepared for you. God often gives revelation before elevation. Before He takes you higher, before He moves you into a new season, before He shifts you into the next dimension of your purpose. He will often give you a glimpse, an insight, a revelation of what is to come. He doesn't always give the full picture, but He gives enough for you to know that something is happening. He gives enough for you to recognize that the season you are in is not permanent. He gives enough to prepare your heart for the shift that is coming. Revelation is a preview of elevation, a divine heads up that God is about to do something significant in your life. Look at the life of Joseph. Before he ever ruled in Egypt, God gave him dreams of greatness. Before he ever sat in the palace, he saw a revelation of his future. But here's the thing. God showed him the destination, but He didn't reveal the journey. Joseph saw the end, but he didn't see the betrayal, the pit, the prison, the years of waiting. The revelation was real, but so was the process. God gave him insight before elevation. But Joseph still had to trust through every step of the journey. Some of us are in a place where God has revealed something to us, but we are frustrated because we haven't reached it yet. We know God has called us to something greater, but we feel stuck in the middle. We know there's a promise over our lives, but the process seems long and difficult. But hear me today, revelation is not fulfillment. Just because God showed it to you doesn't mean it will happen overnight. The revelation is meant to give you something to hold on to, not something to rush into. If God has revealed something, He will bring it to pass. But you have to trust Him in the meantime. When David was anointed king, he didn't step into the throne the next day. No, he went back to tending sheep. He went back to the field. He went back to the ordinary, even though he had received a revelation of something extraordinary. But what did he do? He trusted God in the process. He allowed the revelation to build his faith, to strengthen his resolve, to prepare him for what was coming. Because revelation without preparation leads to destruction. God will always reveal before He elevates, but He won't elevate you before you're ready. This is where so many of us struggle. We receive revelation and we want elevation immediately. We want the promise, but we don't want the process. We want the blessing, but we don't want the breaking. We want the calling, but we don't want the crushing. But God is saying, I gave you the revelation not to frustrate you, but to prepare you. If you have seen glimpses of something greater, if you feel in your spirit that God is calling you higher, if you have received confirmation after confirmation, don't grow weary in the waiting. Don't allow the enemy to make you think it's not coming. God does not reveal what he will not fulfill. If he showed it to you, he will bring it to pass. But you have to let the process shape you. Moses received a revelation of the promised land, but he still had to go through the wilderness. Paul received a revelation of his calling, but he still had to endure suffering and trials. Jesus himself had the revelation of the resurrection, but he still had to go through the cross. Revelation is powerful, but it does not exempt you from the journey. It is meant to encourage you, to give you something to hold on to when things get tough. To remind you that elevation is coming even when the process feels painful. If you have received revelation, then trust it. Trust that God knows what he's doing. Trust that he is working behind the scenes. Trust that the process is not punishment, it is preparation. You are not being delayed, you are being developed. You are not being denied, you are being positioned. Revelation is a sign that elevation is near, but don't rush the process. Stand firm in what God has shown you, and when the time is right, he will elevate you beyond what you ever imagined. Deliberate trust transforms doubt into destiny. Trust is not something that happens by accident. It is a choice, an intentional act of faith, a deliberate decision to believe in what God has spoken, even when circumstances don't seem to align. Trust is not just a feeling, it is an action. It is something you must cultivate, something you must walk onto, something you must walk in daily. When trust becomes deliberate, when it is no longer based on emotions, but on conviction, doubt loses its power. And when doubt is removed, destiny is unlocked. Many people assume that trust is something that just happens naturally, but that is not the case. You don't wake up one day and automatically trust God at every level. Trust is built, trust is developed, trust is strengthened through experience, through prayer, through the word, through time spent in God's presence. Deliberate trust means choosing faith even when fear is knocking at your door. It means standing firm on God's promises even when your mind is flooded with doubt. It means deciding that you will believe what God says more than what your situation is telling you. Look at Peter when he stepped out of the boat. The moment Jesus called him, he had a choice: stay in the boat where it was safe or step onto the water where trust was required. His trust had to be deliberate. He couldn't waver. He couldn't overthink it. He had to make a decision to believe in what Jesus said more than what logic told him. And for a moment, as long as his trust remained steady, he walked on water. But the moment doubt crept in, the moment he focused on the waves instead of the word, he began to sink. This is what happens when trust is not deliberate. If you allow doubt to enter, it will pull you down. But if you hold on to trust, if you make it your foundation, you will walk in places others thought were impossible. Trust is not automatic, And doubt does not disappear on its own. You have to confront it, you have to fight it, you have to deliberately push past the questions, the fears, the uncertainties, and make up your mind that you will believe what God has said. Trusting when you understand is easier, but even when understanding is not complete, deliberate trust is what takes you from waiting to walking, from hesitation to manifestation, from doubt to destiny. Abraham had to make a choice to trust God deliberately. God told him he would be the father of many nations, but his circumstances said otherwise. He was old, his wife was barren. Everything in the natural contradicted what God had spoken. But Abraham didn't allow doubt to dictate his destiny. He made a deliberate choice to believe. And because he believed, the promise was fulfilled. Some of us are sitting on promises, waiting for things to make perfect sense before we trust. But let me tell you something. If you are waiting for every detail to align, for every sign to be clear, for every obstacle to be removed, you will never step into your destiny. Trust is what unlocks the next level. Trust is what moves mountains. Trust is what brings the impossible into reality. But it must be deliberate. It must be a choice you make every single day. You cannot afford to let doubt linger. Doubt is the enemy of destiny. Doubt will keep you stuck in the same place for years. Doubt will cause you to miss opportunities that God has placed in front of you. But when trust becomes your mindset, when trust becomes your lifestyle, when trust becomes your default response, nothing can stop you. No storm, no setback, no delay, nothing can hold you back when you trust God deliberately. So make up your mind today. Choose trust over fear. Choose trust over doubt. Choose trust over hesitation. Because when trust is deliberate, doubt has no place. And when doubt is removed, your destiny will unfold before your very eyes. Trust grows deeper when understanding is tested. It is easy to trust when everything makes sense. It is easy to believe when the path is clear, when the answers align, when life is moving according to plan. But real trust, deep, unshakable trust, does not grow in ease. It grows in the tension of uncertainty. It grows when understanding is tested. Testing is never comfortable. It stretches you, challenges you, pushes you beyond what you thought you could handle. But the purpose of a test is not to break you, it is to reveal what is in you. It is in the testing that you discover how much you truly trust God. It is in the testing that trust moves from something you talk about to something you live. It is in the testing that your faith becomes more than just words. It becomes a foundation that cannot be shaken. Look at Job. He was a man who understood God, who walked uprightly, who was blessed beyond measure, but his trust was tested. His understanding was shaken. He lost everything, his family, his wealth, his health. And in that moment, he had a choice. Would he trust God only when life was good, or would he trust him even when everything was falling apart? Job wrestled, he questioned. He didn't understand why he was suffering. But even in his pain, he made a declaration, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. That is deep trust. That is trust that has been tested and found unbreakable. Many of us say we trust God, but when our understanding is tested, we start to waver. When things don't go according to plan, when prayers seem unanswered, when life takes a turn we didn't expect, we start asking God, where are you? But trust that is only present when understanding is intact is not deep trust. It is surface level faith. And surface level faith cannot sustain you when the storms come. God will allow your understanding to be tested, not to destroy your trust, but to deepen it. He will allow you to go through seasons where nothing makes sense, where the answer is unclear, where the road is uncertain, not because he has abandoned you, but because he is growing something in you. He is stretching your capacity to believe, expanding your ability to trust, strengthening your faith for what is coming next. Abraham had to place Isaac on the altar, not because God wanted to take his son, but because God wanted to deepen Abraham's trust. The Israelites had to face the Red Sea, not because God wanted to scare them, but because he wanted to show them that he was their deliverer. Jesus allowed Lazarus to die, not because he didn't care, but because he wanted to reveal his power over death. In every case, understanding was tested, but trust was. Some of us are in a season where our understanding is being tested. We thought things would go one way, but they didn't. We thought the door would open, but it closed. We thought the answer would come quickly, but we're still waiting. And in this place of testing, we are faced with a choice. Will we trust or will we doubt? Will we hold on to faith or will we give in to fear? This is where deep trust is formed. This is where faith is refined. This is where you learn to believe, not because you see, not because you understand, but because you know God is faithful. If you are in a season where your understanding is being tested, don't run from it. Don't allow frustration to shake your faith. Stand firm. Hold on. Trust that even in the testing, God is working. Because when the test is over, your trust will be deeper, your faith will be stronger, and you will step into a level of confidence in God that nothing can shake. Trusting when you understand leads to obedience with conviction. Obedience is not just about following instructions. It is about moving with confidence, knowing that what you are doing aligns with God's will. It is one thing to obey out of obligation, but it is another thing to obey with conviction. Conviction means you are sure. Conviction means you are unwavering. Conviction means you are not just going through the motions. You are standing on a foundation that cannot be shaken. And that kind of obedience only comes when trust is rooted in understanding. When you understand what God is doing, you don't hesitate. When you understand his character, you don't question his commands. When you understand that his ways are higher than yours, you don't resist his direction. You move forward, not reluctantly, but with boldness, because you are convinced that he knows what is best for you. Obedience with conviction is the kind of obedience that moves mountains. It is the kind of obedience that produces miracles. It is the kind of obedience that causes the impossible to become possible. Look at Noah. God told him to build an ark when there was no sign of rain. To the world it looked foolish, but Noah understood that when God speaks, he does not lie. His trust in God led to obedience with conviction. He didn't build the ark half-heartedly. He didn't second-guess himself with every plank of wood he placed. He built with confidence because he understood the assignment, and because of his obedience, he and his family were saved. When you trust with understanding, your obedience is not dependent on your emotions. Too many people obey only when they feel like it. They obey when it's convenient. They obey when they can see the outcome. But real trust produces obedience that is not tied to comfort. It is obedience that says, even if I don't like it, I will do it. Even if it costs me something, I will do it. Even if I don't fully see the end result, I will do it. Because I trust the one who gave the instruction. Abraham was willing to leave his homeland without knowing exactly where God was taking him. Moses was willing to confront Pharaoh even though he felt unqualified. The disciples were willing to drop their nets and follow Jesus even though they didn't fully understand what lay ahead. They obeyed not out of blind faith but out of trust that was rooted in understanding. They knew God was leading them, and that was enough. Many times we struggle with obedience because we lack trust. We want all the details before we move. We want to know how everything will work out before we take the first step. But that's not how trust works. Trust says, God, I understand enough about you to know that you will not lead me astray. I may not have every answer, but I have enough understanding to obey with conviction. When Peter cast his net on the other side of the boat, it wasn't because he suddenly became an expert fisherman. It was because he understood that if Jesus said it, it had to be true. And because he obeyed with conviction, he received a catch so great that his nets began to break. His trust led to obedience, and his obedience led to overflow. Some of us are missing our breakthrough because we are hesitant in our obedience. We keep questioning. We keep waiting for more confirmation. We keep analyzing instead of acting, but delayed obedience is disobedience. If you understand, then move. If you understand, then act. If you understand, then obey with conviction. Because when trust is fully developed, obedience follows without hesitation. And when you obey with conviction, you position yourself for blessings beyond what you can imagine. Trusting when you understand is not just a principle, it is a pathway to transformation. It is the bridge between revelation and elevation, the force that turns doubt into destiny, the foundation that keeps you standing when understanding is tested. Trust is not passive, it is intentional. It is the decision to believe when logic fails, the choice to move when God speaks, and the willingness to obey with conviction because you know that His plans are always greater than yours. Every great move of God requires trust. Every breakthrough, every promise fulfilled, every victory won, all of it is tied to trust. Joseph trusted through the process. Abraham trusted through the journey. Job trusted through the suffering. Jesus himself trusted the Father's will, even to the point of the cross. And because of that trust, resurrection came. Glory came. Purpose was fulfilled. Now the question is, can you trust when you understand? Can you hold on to faith when God has given you revelation but not yet shown you fulfillment? Can you obey with conviction when you know what He requires, even if the road looks uncertain? Because trust is not about convenience. It is about confidence. Confidence in God's word, confidence in His plan, confidence in the fact that what He has revealed, He will bring to pass. So today I challenge you, step into trust like never before. Trust not just when it is easy, but when it is necessary. Trust not just when it is clear, but when it requires faith. Trust not just when it is comfortable, but when it demands obedience. Because when you trust with understanding, when you believe with certainty, when you obey with conviction, nothing can stop the fulfillment of God's purpose in your life. Trust Him, move forward, walk boldly, and watch how He brings everything together in His perfect time.